Good morning and happy Friday. For those who don't know me, my name is Jane, and I am over a year post bone marrow transplant for something called ctla-4 haploinsufficiency, which is a genetic condition that causes your immune system to just go haywire. And it was killing me, and my only real option was to have a bone marrow transplant from an unrelated donor. So I am currently fighting graft versus host disease, which is a complication of having a transplant like this. But today I actually wanted to get into kind of like the origin story of where all of this started, which is with my grandmother on my mom's side, who is actually going to be 99 this month, which is just insane. I know we had talked about doing a podcast, like an actual podcast in our room with all the equipment and stuff. But with the way life goes and everything else, we just have not been able to do it. So I'm just going to do it here. Yeah. So our grandmother, we call her Nana, has had a very complicated life living with ctla-4, and she was born in the 1920s. And she lived just a crazy life. Her life story is equally as crazy as like our life story, if not maybe even a little bit more. She and her younger sister were orphaned by the time that they were 8 and 4 years old. Her mother died at 31, and we presume that she probably had ctla-4 haploinsufficiency because she was very unwell, had a lot of surgeries. She actually ended up passing because of complications from the surgery. And this is like before medical malpractice was even a thing. So there was no recourse for her family. And then unfortunately her father passed away only a year later. And I'm not really sure what happened there. I've heard a few different stories, but one of them is that he fell and hit his head. And that there was also a gas leak in the building. So he ended up succumbing to that. From there, her and her sister went to live with their aunts, I believe, and their grandparents. As she grew up, she went to college, and that's actually where she learned that she had a vitamin B deficiency, which is actually an autoimmune disease called pernicious anemia. And that's also when she found out that she had Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, and she started taking medication for that. As she went on, she ended up having 4 beautiful children, 3 boys and 1 daughter. And the daughter was my mom. But my grandmother went on, like, after she had my mom, who was the 3rd child, she ended up in a tuberculosis ward for over 6 months because she was so sick. And my mom actually had to go live with cousins because my grandfather had the 2 other boys and was working full time, and it was crazy. So my Nana's a champ. She has been through so much. At one point, they even thought she had leukemia because she had something called pancytopenia, which is where like your bone marrow basically has begun to fail and it is not producing new cells. And a lot of the times, I guess the majority of the time, it ends up being some sort of malignancy. And in our case, it wasn't. But this is way back before genetic testing and all the testing that we have available today. So they really just treated her with steroids. She also was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which she took steroids for and medication for, and like she still takes those medications to this day, actually. And it's just impressive. She is 99. It's incredible how this disease affects people so differently. Her sister lived to be into her early 90s as well, and she was also positive for ctla-4 haploinsufficiency. And it's incredible when you look at like the big picture and everything that we've lived through, and the fact that we were able to trace this back to my grandmother and then most likely her mom. And like my mom passed away at 50 from complications from this, and stuff like that really makes you appreciate being here and having access to the medical stuff that we do have now. I totally think that if my mom had been given the option to have a transplant, she probably would have, but I digress. Without having Nana get tested for ctla-4 haploinsufficiency, we may never have actually learned what the cause of death, or like what contributed to the cause of death for my mom and her daughter actually was, which, my mom had an autoimmune disease called hypocomplementic urticarial vasculitis syndrome. In short, it's called HUVS, and when it's like systemic, the way it was for her, it causes just damage to so many different organs, and she was never able to get off prednisone, and it was just a really rough ride for her. And I appreciate it more now than ever before, being in the position I'm in as a mom and as a patient and as a caretaker. It's a lot, and I totally understand why she struggled as much as she did. But yeah, if you stuck around this far, thank you. Be on the lookout for our next actual podcast episode. I think we're going to upload it tonight. It's about 20 minutes, so stay tuned.